Can you talk a little bit about kind of what changed throughout your childhood and like what was kind of the breaking point for your family to come here?
So many Venezuelans will tell you from 2016 to 2017 that was the worst period because the sanctions came in, but it was not the sanctions that were the ones destroying the country. The government took that as an opportunity to be even more corrupt, to
Mm.
even take more power over all branches and even the economic system. So it was not the sanctions, they just used that as an excuse to kind of act behind closed doors and keep destroying everything.
Amira, thank you so much for joining us on Gen Z Unplugged today. We are thrilled to be able to talk to you, and we would love to start by just having us tell us who you are.
First of all, thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure, and thank you for giving me the chance to tell my story. First of all, I'm a Venezuelan immigrant. I was born, raised in since 2005, all the way to 2019 when I moved here. I was raised in all of this era of post-socialism, basically. So I never got the chance to see my country the way everybody remembers it. I got to see democracy and freedom when I got here. I'm currently a student. I go to Lipscomb University in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm majoring in political science with a concentration in international relations, currently interning at the Luce Center here. Such a blessing and an opportunity to be here. And my goal is to go to law school and be an international lawyer to keep spreading awareness of the economic fiascos of socialism in the future.
That's amazing. And
Thank you.
just to follow up with that, what was your experience growing up in Venezuela? Tell us a little bit about that.
My experience growing up in Venezuela was like, it was really hard. However, the sad part about that, I did not realize that it was really hard until I moved here. So, propaganda was everywhere. Militarized was in every corner of the city. I was actually born and raised in the city where the first dictator, Hugo Chavez, was born. So, I got to be in school with children of high corrupt military people. My dad was small business owner, so I got to see from the inside out how everything worked for small businesses and companies and how they target them. And basically my life was just like around politics, economic disasters every single day, and I didn't realize how different that was for a child or even a teenager to be raised in that until I moved here because I realized not everybody is into politics every single day of your life, but because my country was constantly collapsing in every institutional area, I was constantly exposed to these challenges, economic and politically.
And I think you grew up during a really interesting time there. So, can you talk a little bit about kind of what changed throughout your childhood and like what was kind of the breaking point for your family to come here?
So many Venezuelans will tell you from 2016 to 2017 that was the worst period because the sanctions came in, but it was not the sanctions that were the ones destroying the country. The government took that as an opportunity to be even more corrupt, to
Mm.
even take more power over all branches and even the economic system. So it was not the sanctions, they just used that as an excuse to kind of act behind closed doors and keep destroying everything. So basically, they were cutting electricity for 24 hours if you were lucky. I spent 2 weeks without electricity. Actually, the last week I was trying to leave, like we were packing and everything. I had to pack and say goodbye to all of my friends without electricity because they just got it off. They didn't want people to be notified of any type of news. They don't want people to have access to like updated information. So no internet and no electricity, it's pretty reliable for them. Also, they cut the waters, like every type of public use of water, even for your shower, they cut it off anytime they want. So basically, you have to survive and kind of get used to and normalize this lifestyle for you. Even in school, children will talk about politics all the time. You'll see your friends. I had to write essays with a candle on my table because nobody had computers. Because even if you had them, what's the point? They're going to cut the electricity anytime. So professors even have to be very flexible. Students being late because there was no gas. Ironically, we didn't have any gas.
That's ironic.
We are the country with the most amount of oil in the world, and people struggle to get gas. So professors would have to be flexible. Students were not able to be in class, and pretty much the reason was, oh, my parents do not have gas, I can get to class. Or my essay was late, we didn't have electricity. So you had to do everything like in the 1800s, basically, with a candle or something to just kind of get through the school year. So basically, it would affect every single tiny thing of your life. You'll see the economic situation be reflected on you.
For our listeners who might not know, when did you actually leave? How old were you when you came here?
I moved here in 2019. Actually, a 4th of July of 2019, I arrived to Miami, Florida, and that's the exact day I got here to the United States.
And you were how old?
I was 14 when I
Okay.
left, yeah.
So in the 14 years, is there any like, I know we were talking about this a little bit earlier, are there any crazy stories that would maybe surprise our listeners? Like specific situations that maybe defined your, I mean, you said a little bit, but any more?
Yeah, so I went to school with children that were children of high corrupt military members or even politicians. So I could go to school with these people whose parents were workers for Vladimir Padrino Lopez, which is a guy that's being looked by the DEA right now, $50 million reward. So their children and people who work for them, I'll go to school with them. Or even there was like this random positions in the military that nobody knows. Somebody got it, and it happened to be the parents of children I went to school with. Out of nowhere, there'll be a middle class family, but they will come to school next day in very expensive trucks, sports cars out of nowhere. Their houses, there'll be like a simple house, and then out of nowhere, you'll see a mansion being built. So you had to see the corruption as a child, because even your friends will tell you, this is what my parents do. This is their job. And they'll tell you in the most cynical way. They wouldn't tell you with embarrassment. They wouldn't tell you like worried about judgment. They'll just tell you like very normalized, this is what my parents do for a living.
Wow. I mean, it's difficult, I think, for American high schoolers, college students, whatever, to even fathom that being your reality. The fact that the corruption is so prevalent and there's no one is ashamed of it is really fascinating. So one thing I want to ask too is about that culture in Venezuela. I mean, obviously socialism has a huge impact on the day-to-day life. I mean, your electricity being cut off and all of these scenarios that just seem unfathomable to people in the United States. So what was the culture like outside of that? Because I mean, we were talking earlier about how Venezuela is like maybe the number 1 or number 2 winner of beauty pageants in the world. So what is kind of that culture like?
So I think everything began with our economic success back in the 80s and 70s. We received a lot of immigration from Italy, Portugal, Spain, even China. Japanese people came over. So we were a pretty successful country, and we knew that. We were very proud of it. We were top 1 in education in Latin America. We were very successful. People got used to that. Everybody in Venezuela has a college degree and has a college degree in really important jobs. They're lawyers, they're doctors, they're engineers, they're architects, even oil engineering, which was like the most prominent industry in the country. So basically, we had people from all over the world coming to work with us, and our country was capable of giving them a good future. We knew that. So I think kind of everything started with the economic success. Later on, there's certain cultural factors, like I think the genetic mix of all of this immigration really helped Venezuelan women stand out, not just like intellectually, but also physically. And we're people that we like to be very prepared in everything we do. That's a cultural norm. If you're going to do something, you do it right and you do it the best. And that's because we were so successful and so educated back in the day that was a cultural norm. That was a society norm. So when Venezuelan women go to the beauty industry, they do it very prepared. And I think that's what makes us stand out a lot in the beauty industry, because they do it very well prepared. And we have won 7 crowns. I think the only country that has more than us is the USA. And we have the only back-to-back in the entire history of Miss Universe. So only one country has had women from one nationality giving it to the other, and that country is Venezuela. So even in education, entrepreneurship, everybody in Venezuela owned a business. Even doctors, they went to school for a little bit, work in hospitals or clinics, and then they open their own. The same thing for lawyers. The same thing my parents, myself. My dad didn't went to school, and he had his own business. It was very good for entrepreneurship. So people were very successful in a lot of areas, not just education and beauty. And I think there was like this kind of expectation that you had to succeed. So I think vanity was very normalized. Also, this entire competition of my car has to be better than yours. My shoes have to be better than yours, or at least fit in this line of prestige. I went to a private school. If you didn't have, this was like after socialism, but if you didn't have like this nice clothes or the nice shoes, you were not part of the club. You were the weirdo. So I think our success was very good back in the day, but as generations pass, we turned this success into vanity, and then we just kind of weaponize it against ourselves. And there's always this expectation that you have to be competing with your peers, but unfortunately not for your own growth, but basically to compete with them and be better than them.
That's so interesting because I think when you think of the typical socialist country or a country that's totally been, wiped out by communism, you think of extreme poverty and people just trying to get by. And it's so different than what you're talking about, where the goal is, drive a Mercedes Benz and wear Gucci, whatever bags and all of that. So different than I think what people would expect of a country in that situation.
Yeah, I was only exposed to my city because that's the only place I live. And I'm from a very small town. So I think this really shaped a lot. Like everybody was constantly worrying about each other. Oh, what are you wearing? What school do you go to? What car your parents drive? So I can't speak for the entirety of the country, but at least in my state, that was pretty normalized. And the reality of Venezuela, like, we're pretty bad. Like people are like struggling right now, but you have two completely different realities. If you go into Instagram and I try to help my country say, hey, my people are struggling, and then you go into Instagram, people would not believe me because there are people traveling to these very beautiful beaches in Venezuela that are highly expensive. And then you see what I'm trying to tell you to help people in Venezuela that are struggling, and then what other people post. And it's because we have two different realities. You have the very corrupt people that show their luxury lifestyle, and then you have the people that actually get the consequences of the socialism, which is people like you and I. So you have to be very careful how you learn about it because they're two different realities. And that's what the government wants. They want to show we're okay, everything's fine. So if people keep promoting this, everybody's just going to ignore that their children with their parents outside of the country trying to make a living while they have to stay in there with their grandmothers by themselves taking care of them because their parents have to work in a foreign country to be able to bring food to the table.
So you're saying all of this existed at the same time. So your electricity and water were getting cut off, but there was still the pressure to like everyone got a college degree and everyone like ran their own business. How were they able to like, I guess, make it that far if they couldn't write an essay? Like how did that work if it was all the same timeline?
I think the social pressure made people very resilient. So I left and I did not have the opportunity to go to college, so I don't even know how people go through that. Because I know people that went to school with me, they're now graduating from med school.
Wow.
So I don't even know. I don't know what their parents do. Like I said, like there's so many different realities that you don't know what to trust. But I think all of them in a certain way are like true. So basically, I think the social pressure of I don't want to be behind, I don't want to seem like miserable, kind of push people to just keep going. And if you think about it, there's a lot of us outside of the country. There's 8 million Venezuelans around the world. And I think the number is getting higher. Every year it gets higher. So when they compare themselves to people that are out of the country, or even if you live yourself, you're constantly pushing yourself to make your immigration journey be worth it. And maybe you have family at home that you want to impress and, be successful for them. So it's either, I think it's mostly social pressure and those, that incentive of I want to be better or I don't want to fall behind.
Wow, so interesting. So different than what I think anyone would expect. Okay, I want to talk about the story of how you came to the United States
Yes.
and a little bit more about your experience here in the US.
So my parents, we always came here for vacation.
To Florida
Orlando, that was our go-to. Mickey Mouse was like, that was my idol back in the day. So our visas, it was basically Disney World. The only purpose for visas was Disney World. We never expected to use it to escape the country. So we came here all the time. I think my first trip to the USA was when I was 2, maybe. And I think my first memory of American politics was like this attraction in Disney of like, I think the presidential, they have all the presidents and whatever. I think that was the very first time I was like, oh wow, this is George Washington or whatever. So we always came here. Now, when we were in Venezuela, we got to see the reality and stuff. My parents were really nice. They were hardworking people. We were good. I had a very good life. But then we couldn't keep up with the situation of the country. My mom owned an ice cream shop. How can you survive an ice cream shop without having electricity? Like my dad, we only use cash because we did not have the internet for the credit card machines. So it's really hard to keep up in this world that's constantly progressing in technology with a government that's constantly grabbing you back. So you are just staying in the past and do not, I guess, revolt, or I don't know what they're scared of. But basically, we just couldn't keep up. My parents sold everything we had. That was our time. We can't keep doing this. We can't keep the business running. We have to get out. And also, if you add on top of that, my dad was raised in this version of Venezuela where you had free speech. So he never quit it. In his own business, if a corrupt military guy will come up and try to talk to them about socialism, my dad's like, you have to go. I'm not serving you. He denies service to people. So everything kind of piled up. So if he wanted to use his free speech in his own business, he'll be at risk because somebody will get mad. And next to my house, there's this lady who's the niece of Hugo Chavez. So she was right next to me. She knew all of my family's political opinions and everything. So if you had people that are targeting you for speaking, and then you have their direct family members, plus the economic situation, we're just gonna keep up. It's not worth dying for in a situation where it will not get any better.
And what are the punishments in Venezuela for speaking out against the government?
They do not give you the opportunity for free trial, so they can come with or without an order and just blame you for whatever you want. So basically, people that are currently in the helicoid, which is the biggest torture center in Latin America, it's located in Caracas, Venezuela, they can put any charge on you, so you don't even know. You don't even know what they're charging you for, and that you don't have access. Your family members most of times do not have access to you, so you don't even know the punishments. The only punishments we know is people who survive to it and are exiled in other countries. You could be sent there or any jail, or even there's another one called Rodeo 1, which a guy recently died, and his mom was looking for him for 9 to 10 months. I think if I'm maybe 16 months. And she was looking for him for over a year, longer than a year. And they killed him, and she didn't know. So she kept looking for him for over that year, not knowing that his son was already dead. And she found him already buried. And even the information where he was buried, it was wrong. So they didn't have the decency to have his information correctly. So they keep a lot of secrets in there. So the punishments that it's stories like this. So you don't know certainly what happens. But basically, they can send you any jail they want. They can take your business away. They can take your house away. It's very hard to describe because basically they have all the power over you. For my parents, I probably think they'll have sent them to jail, take our stuff away, and God knows how we could have taken my dad or my mom out of there, because you don't even have a right to proper defense as lawyers, because all the lawyers are either afraid to defend you or the other ones are on their side. So it's really hard you might be able to get a lawyer for like other legal issues, but against the government, like lawyers to protect you against the government, it's really difficult.
And one more question about this before we move on. I would imagine the majority of those arrests are for political reasons. Do people also get arrests for other, what the regime would consider crimes outside of, speaking out against the government? Like, are there examples of other things that you would be arrested for?
Yeah, basically, they can charge you with terrorism for wearing a shirt that they interpret as against your country. Like, I'm gonna say it in Spanish so our people that are viewing, they can see it. En contra de la patria, against your patriotism
Yeah.
kind of thing. But it's not against anything. You're just using your free speech. So to give you an example, there was these two girls. They own a small business, and a guest asked them, like a customer, to print out this shirt with the picture of Hugo Chavez's statue being torn down by a protester this past 2024. And they're like, okay, we'll print it for you. Business is business. If a customer asks you for something, you have to make money out of it, especially in Venezuela. They printed out, sold it, and then they are now in jail for printing the request of a customer.
Wow.
So it's basically anything that they interpret as threatened for their own regime.
And they just come to the door, right? Isn't that what you were saying?
Yeah.
You get maybe like 2 or 3 warnings, and then they just come up and show up and knock on the door and say, you're coming with us. Is that how it works?
That's in the case of my dad. I'm pretty sure other people were in the same thing. But back in 2024, when the elections were happening, they would just go grab you. So there was like a lot of deputies, a lot of like the kind of senators we have in Venezuela that were against the government in the opposition party. And there are videos out there where they just grab them. It's called Operation Tun Tun, which is like Tun Tun in Spanish, like this, like you knock on the door, the knock knock. So if you want to say like in English, Operation Knock Knock or Tun Tun, where they just knock on your door and you see a random guy from the armed forces just like, oh, I'm looking for this person. What are the charges? Oh, I'm just looking for this person. So they just go grab you. There's a lot of deputies and political prisoners right now in the Helicoid that were grabbed through that operation. It was basically anybody against the government.
Wow. Okay, I want to contrast everything you just shared about Venezuela with your experience here in the US. So, can you talk a little bit about that?
It was very different because when I came here, even expressing my opinion was something I hesitated because I was used to just like, be quiet, don't say anything. If they're important people or like people hide up, you don't go against them or anything. So when I saw everybody using their free will, their free speech, you could even insult the president. Fine, you can make memes about the president and fine, nothing happens to you. Even make fun of stuff that happens to the political parties. It's fine, like nothing would happen to you. To me, that was a shock. Also, that everybody was like, they were not afraid to be politically involved. That was shocking to me because in Venezuela, the only way you could be politically involved, it's in their side. The other side, you will always be at risk. Like, there are figures right now in the political opposition party in Venezuela that they're actively being targeted for just, for political contestation and stuff like that. So also the economic prosperity. Everybody could just work, get paid fairly, and you could open a business if you want. You could, invest in the stock market if you know how to do it properly. You could open, whatever you wanted economically, as long as it was under the law, you're good to go. Like, there's nothing bad happening to you. You don't have to be afraid the government going to your business and putting a bunch of fees on you and asking you for half of your property or even taking it away from you. Also, the opportunity for me to actually be in politics. In Venezuela, not even citizens are allowed because unless you're part of the Chavez party, they're not going to let you go. Probably they're going to kill you before you can. And here, even if you're not an American citizen, you can be involved in politics. To me, that meant so much freedom because I could do in here what in my country I was not allowed to unless I was on their side. So there were so many shocks, or even like the food. Like I was telling you, I really thought cereal in here was very colorful because I was in socialism and everything was depressing over there. And then I got here, the food was nice. You had air conditioner. You didn't have to worry about turning your light switch on and not having electricity, or even just going to take a shower. I never heard an American saying, oh my God, there is water, because it's just normal. Like in Venezuela, you'll be like, oh, finally, after 8 hours without water, we have water running again. So it was like a lifestyle changing, a constant shock in a lot of ways.
So were you excited to come here when you had first like escaped? Were you like, oh, yay, we're going to the US? Was that kind of the response?
To me, yes, because I was a teenager in Venezuela. Like I said, the social pressure. Um, my parents didn't have the money as many people did, so my shoes were not the designer ones they had. I was not able to go to parties because apparently in my city in Venezuela, everybody was partying at 14. My conservative parents would never let me do that. So, because that's another thing. If you pay in Venezuela, you get a fake ID and just go partying. Um, Basically, there was a lot of things that my school was doing that I couldn't do because we either didn't have the money or because it was like just not something culturally my parents will accept. So moving here was another chance for me to be me. Being a good student in my school was like weird. You have to always focus on being popular. Who has the best clothes? Who has the best shoes? Whose parents have more money or whatever. That's my city. I don't know other cities if people really care, but that's how mine was. And when I got to be here, I did not have to worry about that. Americans culturally are like everybody's minding their business. Everybody's getting through their life. There's no gossip. There's no intervening in your personal life. Everybody has like boundaries. So coming here and being able to be me for the first time, not worrying about my parents not having any money, not worrying about my parents trying to be assassinated anytime, to me that felt relief. So I went to school in peace because that's another thing. In Venezuela, kidnaps are very, very common, especially when I was little, like kidnap raids. Good luck because the police is very inefficient. I
Like
was
for a ransom?
Yeah, like just for
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
Either like if the government wanted to get you, they'll send criminals to kidnap you, or it was just like human trafficking.
Gosh.
I was 4 years old, and my mom was already explaining me what a kidnap was because they were targeting my dad.
Wow.
So I went to a private school not because I was, better than everybody else, but that was the only way I would be safe because they had like high security in the school. So I've been aware of this, of like kidnapped since I was 4. So basically coming here, I'm like, I didn't have to worry about that. I could just worry about school, learning English. That was my only goal back in the day. So it was like normal goals for a 14-year-old. And then I find out, hey, I actually like politics, which is something in Venezuela nobody wants to get involved because everybody's afraid.
Yeah.
Or pretty much everybody's tired of politics, like just losing hope. So basically in here, I got to meet my own potential. I like law. I like debates. I like politics. I like diplomacy. So I got to see all of this in a normal country where I actually had the opportunity to focus and pursue those goals. That was kind of like a little bit of everything that happened to me when I came here.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
I mean, the fact that, you had such a good little snippet in there about like, America allowed you to be you. And it kind of reminds me of, like, if you're familiar with psychology and Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where if your basic needs are taken care of, then it allows you to do all the things that you want to do, and that reaching that like self-actualization, I think is what it's called. So you've experienced that in such a great positive way. And then I think on the opposite end, is Americans who have all of these needs taken care of, then they almost start looking for issues or things to have wrong. And I think that's how transgenderism was born, is people are almost too, and I won't speak for everyone because I know there's very specific cases, but it seems like people are so satisfied with their basic needs that they have the freedom and the time to be able to question their own gender. Like, I think the fact that people are doing that proves that Americans are truly living in luxury across the board, save some few cases. But that is such an interesting contrast that you now have the ability the freedom to be yourself. So I think that's just really beautiful. And I want to talk, as we're, getting down to the last few minutes here, about socialism, communism in general. Something that you mentioned as you were talking about your experience in Venezuela was that freedom of speech, and the government control that, goes down to even, you can't get a shirt printed because of your political opinion. And it reminded me a lot of all of the companies that were denying people the right to print a poster for a vigil for Charlie Kirk. Or, the government going after people during the Biden administration. So we do, I mean, it's very different, but we do see a little bit of that kind of socialist phenomenon happening in the US. And then Mamdani in New York, obviously, that's a huge threat to our economic prosperity and freedom. So what is your message coming from a country that has been completely destroyed by socialism to young Americans who are starting to embrace it?
I'm going to try to be very humane in here. Stop being mediocre. This is indeed the country of opportunities. It's not the country's fault that you're too lazy to not pursue them. You have to take things in responsibility of your own actions. Do not get the government as your solution for everything. There's this fantasy, this utopia where everybody's equal that will never exist. Even back in biblical times, everybody had a different status. There were still poor people back in the day. And it's because we human beings have the capacity, we have the reasoning capacity to be better than ourselves and grow. And this is a country that allows you to do that. So if Mandami comes here and tries to promise you that everything is going to be free and everything is going to be equal for everybody, we went through that. Cubans warned Venezuelans. Venezuelans and Nicaraguans are going through the same thing, that there's no way on earth that a system where everybody's being pushed to be the same, there's no opportunity for growth. Like, that's basic economics. So this is a fallacy. This is a lie. This is a fantasy that they're trying to take from you in your mediocre mindset of not trying to be better than you were. And the worst part about socialism, it's a system rooted in envy, jealousy, and resentment. They don't want to be better for themselves. They're not capable of trying to look something better for their own, but then they want to condemn everybody else to be the same. If they don't want to pursue an education because it's too expensive and the rich are behind all of this, they don't want other people to ignore that challenge and just pursue it. They are too scared of people's potential. They want to convince you that you're weak, that you're incapable, and that you need of the government. They want to manipulate you. That's why many socialist parties target immigrants' communities, because you come to this country or any country at all, and you think that you need help, and you do not. You can do stuff on your own. They're just trying to convince you otherwise, so they control you just like they did to the Venezuelan people. There's no way on earth economics will be capable of creating equality. It will never happen. Especially politicians that live in this. I think his wife has like a $300 shoes. They're promoting equality, and then they're like above everybody else. Hugo Chavez did that too. So learn from stories like us. Do not try to believe this fallacy, this fantasy where equality will be achieved through politicians offering you this system. Stop being mediocre. I think socialist people who believe in this, they just do not see the capacity that they have in themselves to succeed and are too afraid and too lazy to take the effort to take the opportunities being offered here in this country, in any first world country that you can see. That's actually a cultural shock I had when I came in. I was like, Americans have everything. You have so many. Like, I know there's different realities. Like, probably people are like a little bit more unfortunate that I am and are struggling. But this country offers you the opportunities to just overcome that bottom floor kind of thing. And the fact, like in Venezuela, people don't worry about being transgender. People don't worry about their pronouns because we're worried, where can I get the food? Where can I escape? We're worried about survival. So in here, you even have the opportunity to just overthink about your, I don't know what confusion you have about your gender. Like, we don't get that. So it's indeed the country of opportunities, and they have everything. They have almost so much that they don't see. They're so privileged in so many areas, they don't get to see it. It's kind of like it's like if they were blind. They don't see that free speech, it's not common in everybody's country. They don't see that pursuing an education, even if it's expensive, it's an opportunity in any country. Even just being on your social media, complaining about capitalism, we don't get that in many countries. So I think they need to see a little bit of reality of the rest of the world, get out of their bubble, and again, stop being mediocre and jealousy when people actually want to succeed. If you want to condemn yourself to be a slave of the government and depend on them the rest of your life, go and take a trip to Venezuela. Let's change spots. I'll take your spot in here
Yeah.
and you take mine, because I think it's not like this country is oppressing you. It's just like you don't want to take the effort to take every opportunity you have.
What a message for young women. I mean, just young people in general. Just that we are basically taking everything for granted. And it's so good to have that perspective that you're bringing, just so that we know, just that we're aware. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah. And so to wrap it up, a final question is, how would you define the American dream?
It's different for everybody, but the root of the American dream is, first of all, independency. You have to do stuff on your own. Nobody will come save you, and if somebody tries to tell you that, they're lying to you. The American dream, the core of the American dream, is independency. You have the opportunity to achieve stuff for your own merit and your own effort. Second is resilience. This is a very competitive country. Not for nothing, it's the best country in the world. We're constantly challenging ourselves for improvement, so you have to be resilient. There's going to be a lot of competition, but it doesn't mean that you're going to be set up for failure. You have to have discipline. There's going to be a lot of ups and downs for the Americans, for the immigrants, for anybody. So you have to keep with discipline. And I will say, be realistic. You have to be realistic. Every country has its flaws, and just because you have a flaw in it doesn't mean that it is not existent. Also, in being realistic, just because you haven't been capable of achieving your goals, that doesn't mean this country does not have the capacity to offer other people to achieve theirs. I was told many times, Americans don't want you. The conservative movement doesn't like you. God hates you. You're a white girl wannabe, American wannabe. And everything to just try to push me down to achieve my education, my career goals. And you have to be realistic that there are people that do not want you to succeed. And if you're going to let them put you down and convince you that the American dream doesn't exist, probably you should have never migrated to begin with. So I would say discipline, resilience, realistic expectations when it comes to living here. Not everybody's going to support you, and that's fine. You have to be realistic about that. And definitely just, you have to put hard work. Even Americans put hard work. You're not special. You have to put hard work into stuff. So I would say those are my main core values of the American dream. It's different for everybody. But if you don't have those things, of course, you will never be able to see the American dream.
I think "you're not special" is a good final message. I think we all need to hear that. Well, that was a fantastic answer.
Thank you.
And Amira, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.